So you're studying really hard. You're trying different time management methods and you're pulling long hours to study. And yet, you're still not seeing the results that you want. And I know how frustrating it can be because I've been there too. So here are some tips that really changed the way that I study and that helped me to go from low grades to becoming a top performing student at some of my classes at Harvard. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Karina. Welcome to my channel where I share study hacks, productivity tips, and practical frameworks to help you to elevate your life through education. Tip number 1, you're studying passively. You're most likely studying passively doing things like highlighting your textbook, rewatching your lectures, reading your notes over and over again. And those are all highly ineffective ways of studying because just consuming the same content over and over again makes you acquainted with the material, but getting familiar with the material doesn't mean that you understand it. And to use the full potential of your brain and learn more effectively, you also need to study actively. Because the more you engage yourself physically and mentally when you're studying, the more you'll understand what you're learning. And this is called active studying. Basically, you can do this by writing down important points during your lectures, on your own words, for example, or recalling information, or doing practice questions to help you restore what you studied in your long-term memory. And one of my favorite ways to use active recall to study effectively is to use the blurting method. So the blurting method is a study technique where you write down everything that you can remember about a topic without looking at any of your notes or resources. Because this method helps you to test your knowledge and highlighting areas where you know well and those that you also need to focus and study a little bit more. And here's how you can use the blurting method in 3 easy steps. Step number 1, just blurt everything. Write down everything that you know about the topic from memory. Then step number 2, compare and correct. Then you're going to check your blurt against your notes, correct the mistakes, and fill in the missing information with a different pen color. Step number 3, you're just going to study what you missed. So focus on studying the information that you didn't remember well. And then repeat and review to keep practicing the blurting method to reinforce your memory until you get everything right. Reason number 2, you're keeping it complex. If you cannot explain something in the most basic terms, it's because you don't know it well enough. So instead of just reading chapter from your textbooks over and over again, you should just teach it to someone else using the Feynman technique. So the Feynman technique is a powerful learning strategy developed by the legendary physicist Richard Feynman. And this method is based on the idea that the best way for you to understand a concept is to explain it as if you were teaching it to someone else. And I've been there too because I thought that you only truly mastered a topic when you could eloquently explain it to other people in terms that no one else could understand. But this could not be further from the truth. And I could not be more wrong about that because the truth is, you only master a topic when you can numb it down and turn complex problems into simple and easy to follow explanations. So if you want to make sure that you learn something properly, just pretend you're explaining the concept to a 5-year-old and use simple language and analogies to make the concept as clear and concise as possible. And by breaking down complex problems into simple terms, the Feynman technique can help you to find knowledge gaps, deepen your understanding of the subject, and also improve your attention and recall. And you can actually put it into practice by teaching a friend, because this not only helps you to study, but it will also help your friend to learn something new. And if you want to take even a step further and optimize your study time, you can create a study group where each person in your group chooses a topic to study and explain to the rest of the group. So each person in the group can focus on what they're most comfortable with and learn from each other faster than if each one of you was studying everything on your own. But if you don't have anyone else to explain it to, or if you're on your own, you can do it just as well by explaining to yourself out loud in front of a mirror as if there was another person there. Reason number 3, you don't care about what you're learning. Our brains are like sponges that absorbs all the information and then filters them to keep only the most important things in our brain. So if you don't really care about what you're learning, you're sending signals to your brain that this information is not important enough to be stored in your brain. So if you only study for an exam, you're most likely just memorizing instead of understanding the material. So once that exam finishes, you're gonna start forgetting everything that you learned so far. But learning is incremental, with lessons building upon previous knowledge. So if you keep forgetting what you just learned, after every test, you're gonna have to relearn everything again and again for the final exam or any other subject that is a continuation of the class that you just took. Instead of just memorizing the information for the sake of it, try to understand it. This will help you to remember it better and for a longer period of time. And remember, Learning is a lifelong process and not just something that you do for an exam. It takes perseverance, hard work, and a lot of discipline to be able to study things that you may not even have an interest in or that you may not find practical in your future. But we actually learn so much more effectively and retain more information when we're genuinely curious about what we're learning. In fact, studies found that the activity in the midbrain and nucleus accumbens was enhanced during the states of high curiosity. That means that when you're genuinely curious about what you're learning, you can naturally learn things more effectively and remember what you learn more efficiently. But I get it, it's hard to be excited and curious about boring or rather dry subjects like calculus for me. Not everything that we learn will naturally be interesting to us. But when that happens, you can try to create a link between what you're trying to learn to something that you actually like, so you can naturally become more curious to know more about it. For example, if you like playing video games, instead of just thinking about learning calculus for the sake of it, you can become genuinely curious about how calculus actually helps to create realistic animations by modeling motion, light, and shadows for your favorite video game. So for everything you study, try to start by asking questions that sparks your curiosity and push you to learn something new to scratch that itch that you created at the start of your study session. The next no-no is cramming the night before an exam. I used to think that staying up all night to make the most out of the time before an exam would help me to get better grades because the material would be fresher in my mind, and that would help me to rationalize my endless procrastination to study until the very last minute. But it turns out that it has just the opposite effect. The lack of sleep leads to fatigue, poor concentration, and lower grades. So instead of cramming the night before an exam, try to spread out your studying over a longer period of time with spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is a learning strategy that involves repeatedly reviewing the material at increasing intervals to ensure that important lessons becomes unforgettable. And it is based on the concept of trying to beat the forgetting curve, which shows us how much knowledge is lost over time when our brain doesn't put any effort to try to remember it. Spaced repetition helps us to combat this by giving the brain to almost forget that information before revisiting the material again, which makes your brain to work harder to recall that information and help you to move that information from the short-term memory to your long-term memory. And to use spaced repetition, it's important to plan short and frequent review sessions over an extended period of time. So review the older material first, then incorporate the old material with the new information progressively. This approach will help you to build connections between ideas and concepts and make it easier to understand and remember new information. Spaced repetition can be particularly effective for courses where students are required to memorize a significant amount of new information, such as vocabulary for a new language course or definitions for a psychology or biology course. Flashcards, in the form of paper or electronic, can also be a particularly useful tool as part of a spaced repetition system, like Anki and Memorang, not sponsored, that helps you to take care of the spacing interval for each digital flashcard, with the items that you need to learn and review each day to make the spaced repetition process more efficient and effective. And this is going to help you to retain the information better and reduce your stress levels. The next one is that you don't have a study plan. You never get to study if you don't actually make a plan to do so. So at the beginning of every semester, write down all the important dates like assignments, quizzes, exams, along with the topics that you're actually going to need to study to succeed in it. And by planning your study schedule according to those deadlines, you're going to be able to manage your time better and make sure that you're studying everything that you need to in a timely manner. One tool that can help you to prioritize effectively is the Eisenhower matrix. And to use the Eisenhower matrix for prioritizing what you need to study, you can just follow these 4 steps. First, you're going to identify all the tasks. Start by listing all the tasks or subjects that you need to study, and this can include chapters, topics, assignments, or any other tasks that are related to your study materials. Then step number 2, you're going to categorize those tasks. So you're going to place each task into one of the 4 quadrants of the Eisenhower matrix based on their urgency and importance. So quadrant number 1 is urgent and important. Those are the things that you're going to do first, because these tasks require immediate attention due to their critical nature. And this should be top of your priority and tackled as soon as possible. For example, studying for an upcoming exam, or completing an urgent assignment, or reviewing a critical concept before an exam. The quadrant number 2 is important but not urgent, so you should just schedule it, because these tasks are important for your long-term goals, but do not require immediate action. So schedule time for those tasks in your study plan. For example, preparing for future exams, studying advanced topics, or working on your long-term projects. Those can be all stored on quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. These tasks are urgent but not directly related to your primary study goals. So if possible, delegate those tasks to others or automate them. For example, instead of participating in person in your weekly debate club meeting, you can ask a friend who's already going there to take notes and let you know what were the key takeaways from the meeting. Quadrant number 4, urgent and not important. And those you should just eliminate altogether because these tasks do not have real value and can just be eliminated. For example, cutting down on your video game time or other activities that just don't contribute to your study goals. Once you have categorized your tasks, you're gonna be able to prioritize your tasks. So focus on completing tasks in quadrant 1 first, followed by quadrant 2, limit the time you spend on quadrant 3, and eliminate tasks in quadrant 4 altogether. And lastly, review and adjust. So regularly review your Eisenhower matrix and adjust your study plan accordingly. Because as you progress, some tasks may move between quadrants based on the changing urgency and importance. And by using the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize your study tasks, you can focus on what truly matters, reduce stress, and enhance your productivity. It's a very simple yet powerful tool that can make a big difference in your academic performance. By incorporating the science-based study strategies into your learning process, will help you to learn smarter and not harder. And if you use any other study techniques that helps you to learn faster and more effectively, let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for ways to become a better learner, and your ideas might also help someone else too. So if you have a good idea, then just share it below. And just remember that studying is a very personal thing. So find out what works best for you and keep making small improvements to become a better learner. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more educational content and study tips. And if you'd like to supercharge your learning and earning potential with a degree from a top university, you can check out some resources I made available to you on the video description. And don't forget that the more you learn, the more you can achieve. So stay inspired, stay motivated, and I'll see you in the next video.